and legislation that protects them. So they get out of their cars with their gun.
Okay.
The police in the United States right now, mentality is, I need to get home safe after my shift. They're not concerned about the people they engage with doing their shift. And when we start making them respect us as human beings in the urban area by coming together, standing up, and opening your eyes and seeing things with your eyes wide open, we can get the accountability that we need. And we can love and cherish and raise our families as well. Thank you.
Complete thanks to Secretary Clinton for allowing us to travel on her behalf around the country, specifically here in South Carolina, to tell you our stories and to tell you why it's so important, first and foremost, to vote, but specifically to vote on her behalf. My name is Lucy McBath. I'm the mother of Jordan Davis, the young man who was shot and killed in Jacksonville, Florida, on November 23rd, 2012, what's called Black Friday. Jordan and his friends were really excited about shopping, and that's all that they were doing on November 23rd, 2012, shopping, going from one mall to the next. And in the time that they actually stopped to get chewing gum, because my son said, you guys, we're going to the next mall. If we're going to pick up girls, we need to get some chewing gum because our breath stinks. Typical for teenage boys. Also, what's typical for teenage boys is they are playing loud music, booming music. And so in that 3.5 minutes time that the boys stopped to get chewing gum, and the driver of the car goes into the convenience store to get chewing gum and cigarettes, a man, Michael Dunn, 47-year-old, white software developer, pulls in next to the boys in the parking lot. And within those 3.5 minutes, he begins an argument, in particular with my son, about the volume of the music. And because he was emboldened by the Stand Your Ground law in the state of Florida, and this expansive law that is all over the country, based upon that law, being emboldened by that law, and his implicit bias, and his racist attitudes towards young men of color. He racially profiled the boys, considered that they were thugs and gangbangers. He shot 10 rounds into the car. 3 of the rounds that he shot into the car, ballistics show that he was aiming for my child, for Jordan. And 3 of those bullets that he shot into the car actually did kill Jordan instantly. The other 7 bullets, he continued to shoot at the boys as they were trying to get out of harm's way. He tracked them as if he were a policeman, tracking them as they moved out of the parking lot.
I'm here.
I truly believe that what gave him carte blanche, so to speak, and the ability to shoot to kill, ask questions later, shoot first, ask questions later, what gave him the authority is the expansive gun culture and the radical gun laws that we have here in our country. And because the gun laws have become so extremely radical, we see disproportionately in our communities of color, that people are acting out their implicit biases and their racism through gun violence towards our communities. It is known that statistically that 30 times more a black man will be gunned down by gun violence more than a white man. 30 times more a black woman will be gunned down through gun violence than a white woman. And black men will particularly live 1 year less in this country because they die by gun violence. They will year less than a white male. I have had the great and profound privilege to stand on the podium with President Obama as he gave his executive orders in this country towards gun violence prevention. And being able to stand on that podium with him, I could only think what my father would think. My father was Illinois branch president of the NAACP for over 20 years. He served on its executive board, and I know that he would absolutely roll over in his grave if he knew that his grandson died by systemic racism, acted out by gun violence, the same things that he had been fighting for those last 30, 40 years in the civil rights movement. I now have to fight on his behalf. I have been watching Secretary Clinton for many, many years. I have watched her as First Lady in this country. I have watched her as Senator Clinton in this country. I have watched her as Secretary of State. I have watched her bring allies back to the fold again, back to the fray, countries that had long been forgotten about. And she has done a good thing. That she will execute the executive orders of President Obama. I have no doubt in my mind that she will make sure that instituted comprehensive background check legislation for all gun sales in this country. I have no doubt in my mind that she will make sure that any individuals in this country that are selling high volumes of guns, that consider themselves in the business of doing or selling guns, and they are gun dealers, I have no doubt that she will make sure that they are fully and duly licensed. I have no doubt that she will make sure that we begin to eradicate the black market selling of guns, the high numbers of black market guns that are infiltrating our cities, and most of those guns are the ones that are being used against communities of color. I have no doubt that she will do everything in her power to make sure that she's keeping guns out of the hands of dangerous criminals, the mentally ill, and definitely making sure that she is putting into place common sense measures in our existing gun laws. She's not against the Second Amendment rights for people to bear arms. Make no mistake about that. But she understands that with the Second Amendment rights, the people have to have common sense measures put in place. Basically, I know that she will execute gun, and I don't say gun control because it's not about controlling your guns, but gun violence prevention, basically to save us from ourselves. I do know that she will make gun dealers and gun manufacturers accountable for the numbers of guns and the immunity that they have in this country towards what's happening in the gun culture. So I stand here before you, sit here before you this evening to say I have no doubt that she is the candidate of choice. I have no doubt. That she cares about what's happening in our communities and the nation at large. I have no doubt that she is the candidate that will protect and serve the constituents that have placed her in office. And I have no doubt that if my father was standing here with me today, he'd say, well done, because you're making the right choice.
Good evening, everyone. Giving honor to God, who is first in my life. I'm here today to endorse this wonderful woman. Just like my fellow mothers said before me, we have a personal experience with her. We didn't have to go looking for her. She came to us. Not one other presidential candidate even considered us. And Secretary Clinton, she reached out to me several times before the meeting in Chicago. Her staff, they constantly called me and told me anything that I need to call them, and they would see what they could do. And at first I was saying, well, why are they calling me? I just, no one else had reached out like that. No other elected official had reached out like that. So how you get leery sometimes, because what's going on? But all in all, there was no catch. She was just genuinely concerned about that time and time again, even after the meeting in Chicago. She had follow-up letters, telephone calls, so it wasn't like this was an exploitation of us mothers. Because as you listen to the other mothers, we can't be exploited. As you all know, you've all seen the tape. My son, Eric Garner, died on July 17, 2014 by the hands of police officer Pandaleo and 5 other police officers. Let's not leave them out. Everybody knows about police Pandaleo, but it was 5 other officers too, as my son laid on the ground dying, saying, I can't breathe. 11 times he said, I can't breathe. But the disconcerted officers, they chose to take his life. And to add insult to injury, there was no indictment. We had a full video showing that my son's rights, his civil rights, his equal rights, and his human rights were violated. But we indictment. Where is the justice? What kind of world do we live in? That day, I will never forget as long as I live. I have to yet to see the full tape, the full video. But from what I've seen, it plays over and over in my head. It's like a reoccurring nightmare. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, it's worse than a nightmare, because I never wake up. But at first, I could do nothing but take to my bed. I didn't want to get up anymore. They had killed my son, my firstborn, for no reason. He was not armed. He was not committing any crime that day. He had just broken up a fight. He was targeted. And I say to you, if Eric Garner was a white man in the suburbs standing on the corner selling cigarettes, it would not have gone down like that. My family, first of all, they were there for me from beginning to end. Some good people. I had the National Action Network. I had the Justice Committee. I had a lot of people that came afterwards and gave me the strength to get out the bed. But foremost, it was the Lord. He talked to me and told me, are you going to lay here and die like your son, or you're going to get up and you're going to uplift his name? And I thought about it. And I thought about there is so many other young men and women out there just like me that is faceless and nameless. And I said to myself, well, my case was very high profile. Every American has uttered the name Eric Garner. So now I have to be the voice of the voiceless. Because we cannot take this anymore. We have to get up and do something about it. We can't stay in our comfort zone. We have to step out of the box. I never thought I would be up here. I never thought I would be an activist. I never thought that I would be in front of you making this statement. But it is what it is. So I say to you today, I had to turn my sorrow into a strategy. My mourning into a vision. Keep my parents and empower each other. So my son's death would not be in vain. And I will walk, speak, rally, do whatever it takes until my voice is heard and until justice is served. All of you to vote and to pick the right candidate. And I think the right candidate is Secretary Secretary. Endorse her because she endorsed us first.
Now you see why we call her Mama Gwen. I am Reed-Veal, the mother of Sandy Bland, and for those of you who don't know, it has been more than a tough road. It has been more than a extraordinary journey. I often tell people that to sit among these mothers and to know what pain really is. You know, you come across people and people don't know what to say to you. When you talk about in 2015 getting a phone call that your daughter, 6 feet, is found hanging in a jail cell from a 5-foot-something partition. Not only does that not add up, something is wrong with that. She was unlawfully arrested while she was down in Texas on a job interview. She did get the job. She was going to be a student ambassador at her old alma mater, Prairie View A&M. Sandy was extremely smart. Sandy was a young lady who just said, listen, I know my rights, and I'm not going to allow you to put your foot on my neck because I know what you're not supposed to be doing. And so when she was unlawfully stopped and arrested, there was no, clearly for the entire world to see, the tape was put out. There was a bystander's tape, which was, thank God for that, that we were able to hear, because there's never any audio on these tapes that seem to come out from the other side. But thank God for that video that showed the whole world you can be doing absolutely nothing because she pulled over because she was targeted and the officer sped up behind her, so she's pulling over to let him on. So she's now arrested for pulled over for failure to signal. But she ultimately, after the stop became, there was a shift in the stop, she was charged with assault on an officer. The family never saw any assault on the officer. I don't know if anybody ever saw any assault on an officer. But because of what she was charged with, she was put in jail where she should have never been. And it was indicated that she should be placed separate and apart because of the violent nature. Sandy was merely minding her own business. And Officer Insignia could not take it. He had an ego situation going on that day. And so as a mother, I say to any officer and to anyone who is here to serve and protect, make sure that that's what you're doing. And you're not isolating and neglecting. Because I know for a fact, if your boss says, my guy was wrong, you're wrong. But at the same time, because of the way our justice system works, 7 months later, the gentleman has now been indicted on a perjury charge. Okay? But he's still getting paid. Okay? He's still on payroll, regardless of the fact that they said the termination is in progress. And so when, as a parent, you say, well, how long is the process? How long is it? Well, we don't know. It could take a year. It could take months. We don't know. Yes, absolutely, he's dead wrong, but yeah, guess what? You don't get any justice right now. Because he needs a fair trial. Okay? So I say to you as a mother, these mothers have all talked about the kind of separation that we had to have from the world. We are grieving. We had to grieve in the open. And so when you didn't see me at first, I was actually in a season. And I tell people everywhere I go, there are 5 seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall, and the season of shut up and sit down. I was in that season when you didn't see me. I was literally in the house. I know what you're talking about. Blinds closed. Darkness everywhere. All you could do was cry. And you would have thought that myself, Cornel West, and Don King had the same bar. So, there was no way I could step out of the house at that time and tell the story, because Whitney would have probably not have been what should have come. So I say we sit here today in what I call a mess for a long time, because I was very angry, and I'm still angry. Don't mistake it. Don't let the suits fool you. Don't let the smile fool you. Don't let the peace fool you. I am very angry. But I'm not angry enough to riot. I'm angry enough to vote for this thing. Just as a mom, and I'm looking at my sisters, these are bad sisters right here. I say I am honored to be on stage with them, but what I used to call a mess has turned into a ministry, and then I got a chance to meet these mothers, and now we are in the mothers of the movement. And so I am grateful for the opportunity. But Secretary Clinton, I met her at the Congressional Black Caucus. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who has been awesome from day one. Day one. She had somebody call my family and say, hey, we're not taking this, from day one. So she introduced me to Secretary Clinton at the CDC. And Secretary Clinton, you know, I'm doing okay. It's the Secretary of Jason. So I go and we're introduced, and she was just as calm and smooth. And she held my hand and she looked right in my face and she said, what is it? What do you want? What do you want out of this situation? Now, we're in a room full of people. This is the secretary. I'm so excited, she didn't even know it. I'm trying to be real cool. I'm like, so I said, you know, I want justice for my daughter. And justice is something different for each of us, I am sure. But nonetheless, justice means that it's time for just us to stop getting justice. She came and she met with us, and you want to talk about just someone who walked in. She needed no introduction. We don't know who she was. She walked in, being who she is, sat with us, knew every story. didn't rush us, allowed us to say everything we need to say, asked us what we would like to see done, and told us, you know, you guys will be really strong as a unit, you know. So we're thinking, okay, Secretary, we hear you. But we heard her, but each of us had our thing going on. And when I tell you, today,